than other places, but I feel like it probably is, but there's a small but still sizable group of people who are choosing not to vaccinate their children. Here in LA, there are schools in which 20% of the students aren't vaccinated because parents here are more scared of gluten than they are of smallpox. And as a result, we now have measles again. We've got measles. I want to say something about it. I don't know if you're one of these anti-vaccine people, you probably aren't going to take medical advice from a talk show host, and I don't expect you to. I wouldn't either. But I would expect you to take medical advice from almost every doctor in the world. See, the thing about doctors is they didn't learn about the human body from their friend's Facebook page. They went to medical school where they studied all sorts of amazing things, like how to magically prevent children from contracting horrible diseases by giving them a little shot. You know those little shots of Botox? Which is botulism, by the way. You get in your face to make your head look smooth and your eyes look crazy. A little shot like that and poof, polio is gone. But some people do not buy into that because they did a Google search and Jenny McCarthy popped up and she had clothes on, so they listened to what she had to say and decided not to vaccinate their kids. Now,
the current controversy over whether or not to vaccinate our youth began when people like Jenny McCarthy started believing that vaccinations will be the death of us and that vaccines are filled with dangerous chemicals that have consequential effects. People are refusing to vaccinate due to religious and philosophical beliefs, freedom and individualism, misinformation about risk, and overperception of risk. Despite the current controversy, there's no doubt that vaccines are effective. The English doctor Edward Jenner had completed the first known experiment for the smallpox vaccine, which led to an upsurge of vaccines for diseases such as polio, measles, whooping cough, and more. Due to the vaccines, many of these dangerous and crippling diseases have been eradicated from some parts of the world. In 1974, there was a very successful vaccination program in Japan for pertussis, or more commonly known as whooping cough. 80% of all Japanese children were vaccinated, and in that year alone, there were only 393 cases of pertussis and no deaths due to the disease. But, just like what is happening now in the United States, rumors began to spread that the vaccine was not safe and was no longer needed. The rumors led to a drastic drop to 10% of infants being vaccinated. Then, in 1979, there were more than 13,000 cases and 41 deaths due to pertussis. This forced the Japanese government to start another pertussis vaccine program, which led to a successful drop in cases. There are some concerns related to the unknown ingredients in vaccines and their effects. However, the number of lives saved due to the vaccines should allow the government to have the right to put in place a mandatory requirement that all parents should vaccinate their children.
No formula, just mommy's healthy, natural breast milk.
Yummy.
Her whole face just got swollen like this overnight.
Mm-hmm. No fever. Glands normal. Missing her vaccination dates.
We're not vaccinating. Gribbit, gribbit, gribbit.
Think they don't work?
I think some multinational pharmaceutical company wants me to think they work. Pad their bottom line.
Mm. May I?
Sure.
Gribbit. 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 Yeah, all natural, no dyes is a good business. All natural children's toys. Toy companies, they don't arbitrarily mark up their frogs. They don't lie about how much they spend on research and development. And the worst that a toy company could be accused of is making a really boring frog. Gribbit, gribbit, gribbit. You know another really good business? Teeny tiny baby coffins. You can get them in frog green, fire engine red. Really. The antibodies in Yummy Mummy only protect the kid for 6 months, which is why these companies think they can gouge you. They think that you'll spend whatever they ask to keep your kid alive. Want to change things? Prove them wrong. A few hundred parents like you decide they'd rather let their kid die than cough up $40 for a vaccination. Believe me, prices will drop really fast. Gribbit, gribbit, gribbit.
Currently, on the federal level, vaccines are not required, but the government provides guidelines for different vaccines per age group. State requirements are slightly different. For example, in Wisconsin, students in kindergarten through the 12th grade require multiple vaccines such as polio, Tdap, MMR, and more in various amounts of doses in order to enter each set of grades. Although these are all required, Wisconsin allows for medical, religious, and personal belief exemptions. So, if the parent or guardian doesn't want to get their child vaccinated, all they must do is complete a small form. For a college student, all Wisconsin requires is that students should be informed about meningococcal meningitis and hepatitis B, even though we exhibit higher risk behaviors such as alcohol consumption, sharing of food and beverages, and exposure to smoke, which puts our age group at a higher risk of infection. This is why the government should be able to require vaccines at younger ages so that there aren't higher risks later on in life when it may be harder to receive vaccines. Although vaccines have been a prominent medical advancement, the evolution of vaccines has scared many parents out of vaccinating. People who don't want to vaccinate their children believe that the government has no right to force vaccines into their children, and it is none of the government's business either. I can see why many people think that it is a lot for the government to require vaccines for all children, and it may seem very invasive. But by not vaccinating, parents are putting not only their own children at risk of diseases, they are also risking the safety of all those in their community due to herd immunity. Herd immunity refers to a means of protecting a whole community from a disease by immunizing a critical mass of its populace. So, if it is not enough people are vaccinated, herd immunity cannot do its job. That puts those who were never vaccinated at a higher risk, and those with a weaker immune system, such as infants and the elderly, at a much higher risk to obtain dangerous diseases. There are also those, like Jenny McCarthy, that believe that vaccines are dangerous and can trigger far worse medical conditions, such as autism.
Without a doubt in my mind, I believe vaccinations triggered Evan's autism. So I think they need to wake up and stop hurting our kids.
There was a study done in England that people believe put support behind their claims that autism is linked to vaccines. But after further investigation, the study was retracted. The doctor who conducted the research ended up falsifying his data, which led him to getting his license revoked. Although some still use such research to help their illogical beliefs, we need to be informed that correlation does not prove causation. For example, organic foods happen to increase around the same time that there was found to be an increase in autism, but we all know that just because they are correlated, it doesn't mean that organic foods cause children to have autism. There are those like Jenny McCarthy who think that doctors haven't looked at the negative effects of vaccines well enough and that the government doesn't have the right to control what parents put in their children. But due to these irrational fears embedded into parents' minds, there have been too many scary and preventable outbreaks across America. It is most kids' dream to go to Disneyland, especially those who only have one wish left. But because parents are choosing not to vaccinate, there was a mass measles outbreak last year where that is supposed to be the happiest place on earth. This outbreak affected almost 150 people in the U.S., and most of them were unvaccinated. The measles outbreak led to many parents being too afraid to go to Disneyland because they didn't want to risk infecting their own children. We shouldn't allow such deadly diseases to become common once again because of unreasonable fears. It is important to keep the youth of America safe from diseases that infect our country by allowing the government to require vaccines for all.
I am a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
And I believe in vaccinations.
And I believe in vaccinations.
If you don't vaccinate your kids, it can endanger their lives.
The potential downsides of vaccinations are almost non-existent.
The cumulative scientific and medical communities are in absolute full agreement
That there is basically no reason not to vaccinate your kids.
No reason.
Which is why I cannot believe we have to make this PSA.
I thought we settled this in the 50s.
Hey, remember that time you got polio? No, you don't, because your parents got you vaccinated.
I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about.
But you people still won't listen.
Now I have to use my only day off to talk to you idiots about vaccines? This is stupid.
Get your kids vaccinated.
Get your kids vaccinated.
Get your kids vaccinated.